let's start, guys. Thanks for everyone that was able to jump on board. We may have a few people come in. And hey, Eric, we're just starting. You can jump on mute. Thanks for coming on board, buddy. So we may have a few more people come on, but I think for the interest of time and respecting everyone's calendar, we'll get started. So I'll introduce myself and give everyone kind of a little bit of context before we dive in. So wait a second, we got one more. I lied. Hey, San, just starting now. You can jump on mute. Before I do, I'm going to assume that everybody is good and can hear me and see me. I'm going to kind of give some ground rules as far as how we want to kind of conduct the conversation and when questions will come up. So for the most part, try to keep yourself on mute. Having said that, I want you to unmute at the right time, and we want to get as many questions as possible. Hey, Jay, Chris Cunningham here, just starting. You haven't missed anything yet. Thanks for coming. So we want to get as many questions and people participating as possible. But I'm going to assume that there's no technical difficulties. For those that, if you do have something, just throw it in the chat or maybe raise your hand, or if you have my cell phone, you can text me. I won't know how to help you, but I'll pretend I'll try. But I assume this is good for everybody. So by way of background, Chris Cunningham, GP and managing partner at C2 Ventures, early stage venture fund here in New York. My partner Matt is also on the line as well. So some of you know us as far as writing pre-seed and seed checks into early stage companies. We've done 8 to date. Backed by a number of incredible LPs in the New York area predominantly. So C2 Ventures is what we do, kind of our day in and day out. Now Story Summit was our summit that was meant to be happening on April 16th until coronavirus came along, and that date is going to be pushed out. So the idea of Story Summit, in case you're not aware of it, is we really thought there was an opportunity to create a day of dialogue for founders. It's not just founders, operators, people that have been in the trenches and kind of seen some ugly stuff, whether it's been and learnings and insights from fundraising and dealing with growing your company and dealing with board members. We really wanted to create a day, and still are going to have this day come up where it's going to really be about learnings and insights. This is kind of an anti-conference. It's not about panels. It's not about keynotes. Story Summit's really going to foster a day of breakout discussions led by thought leaders, but really participatory. So we want everyone involved. So that was happening on the 16th at Convene in New York. For obvious reasons, that's being pushed off until we have greater visibility in regards to in post-coronavirus challenges, which I'm sure has impacted many of you. So when that date gets shared, again, we look forward to seeing you there. And if you don't know about Story Summit, you can go to storysummit.com. So in the spirit of Story Summit and getting such great feedback about what this day was meant to be for founders and executives building startups, we wanted to keep the conversation going and really bring our sponsors and our partners together in these webinars, since we're all stuck at home for the most part, practicing social distancing, to have some related conversations to hopefully keep people engaged, and if it can help them in their own day-to-day. So really look at today as a kind of it's our first one. If it goes well, and I hope it does, and you guys get value, we'll do one of these sort of week over week with other partners. Today, we're really thankful to have 2 of our sponsor partners for Story Summit, Justworks and Reconciled, really help lead the discussion, both Michael and Buda, and I'll let them introduce themselves in a minute. So I'll go through the kind of the format, and then I'm going to let these guys introduce themselves. Really, the way that we talked about organizing this discussion was lead off with a number of different topics, and that topic will be sort of led off by Michael and Buda, because they have the domain expertise and the experience as relates to working in remote environments, which obviously is the topic of today's discussion. But before we move on to the next topic, we really want to give everyone on the call the opportunity to ask questions or share what they're going through. And that's really the agenda here, is to make it really conversational and get you guys sort of active. I'm gonna kind of play air traffic control and use the chat room to kind of both see questions and call you out, so you can ask questions out loud. They don't necessarily have to be to Michael and Buda, but they can also be for the group. So before I start, and I'm sure I missed something, you can unmute at this stage if there's a specific question in regards to the logistics or the ground rules in regards to what we're trying to do. And if there's not, I just did an outstanding job, which would be the first time for me. If there are no questions, again, logistics, we kind of blocked off till 12:45. We'll honor that. If the conversation is there and people want to continue, I'm sure we can continue. We are recording this. So we have our media team on the line. We'll probably try to cut this up and edit it. And if there's some good insights and learnings, we'll share it. And hopefully you guys can help share it as well. So I just want to give you guys a heads up on that, and there's no problems. And I'm sure everyone's looking good. And before we kick off officially, because I haven't said this, I hope I know this is a difficult time, and definitely a challenging time for everybody. So I hope that everyone is staying healthy and safe and practicing what we've been told to practice, and we'll get through this together. And glad that you guys could carve out time today to join us. So no questions. I'm going to pass it over to Michael. Why don't you first introduce yourself and your company? Let's go to Buda, and then Michael, I'll let you sort of kick off the first topic as relates to our subject today.
Yeah, it's Michael Lee. I'm with Reconciled, and we're an online bookkeeping firm based in Burlington, Vermont, that serves entrepreneurs throughout the country. And I'm actually sheltering in place, or quarantined to Arizona right now, where my extended family is, with the rest of my immediate family. We were here on vacation and working, and now stuck here until we can get back to Vermont. Go ahead, Buda.
Hey everybody, Buda Yao here with Justworks. I manage a sales team here. To give you guys some context, Justworks manages HR, benefits, and payroll for small businesses. We consider ourselves an HR business partner, so we have HR consultants and a customer support team for clients right now who are just going through like onboarding and offboarding issues, unemployment, and any sort of guidance that we can provide on the HR front to make their lives easier. I'm calling in from New York right now in my little studio apartment, so going a little bit stir crazy, but trying to push through. So yeah, would love to, over the course of this hour, just learn about like everybody that's on this call, your background, what company you're with. But I think this would probably be a good place to kind of kick off the conversation by, talking about what it takes to get ready for something like this. Here, like at Justworks, we're about 650 employees. We've never worked remotely. Like we've always had a no remote work policy. And 3 weeks ago, we flipped the switch, and over the course of one weekend, everybody worked from home. And we had to get everybody monitors and chairs and desks and figure out all the logistics with Wi-Fi. It was an insane amount of work. And so, Michael with Reconciled, I've known him for a while, and I know Reconciled's been working remotely for a long time. So, Mike, do you want to talk a little bit about like just some early tips for entrepreneurs about how to get their teams ready to work remotely?
And Michael, before you do, it's Chris. Sorry, one last kind of housekeeping. I think what we'll do is, rather than go through, because I just don't know how it would work, kind of getting through calling everyone out, since we are remote, and kind of title and what you do. I think what we'll do is when you have a question or you're getting engaged, just introduce yourself, your company, and if you can, in 10 seconds, maybe what you do, or kind of the challenge you're facing as relates to managing remote teams. That's at the kind of Q&A portion. So let's do it that way. And if you don't ask questions, that's also okay. But just wanted, I think that's probably the right time to introduce yourself when people participate. Michael, sorry, over to you.
Great, no problem. So yeah, thanks, Buda. Reconciled, we started 4.5 years ago. We started out as a remote company. I was intentional about hiring employees to work from home. And so we've been this way ever since. And really the only change for most of our employees, and for maybe some of you, is that the kids are home now, right? The kids are home from school almost across the country, and they're having to navigate childcare and alternative childcare means that was normally there. And so first off, being in Arizona, all of you that are in New York City, I'm thinking about you literally every day. I'm praying for everybody, praying for your health and for your healing and also protection. So just thinking about you guys and trying to hope and pray this ends very soon for you, because I know that New York's getting hit the hardest. So how to manage a remote team. So some tips, especially if you've gone through the transition that Justworks have done, where this literally hit you in the face like a truck and you had to make a transition very fast and start setting your team up. There are a few things that we recommend every company do when they start beginning remote work or remote teams. First is make sure you get a communication platform, an internal communication platform that can serve as an alternative to just email. So if you've primarily been on email, you need to use it. So you need to look at a system like Slack, Teams, Facebook Workplace. Those systems are going to allow your team to communicate a lot faster. It's a cross between instant messaging and email. And I know for most of you in the startup landscape, you're probably already very familiar with that. But now you need to figure out how to utilize those tools, not just as another board that you might have been using in a physical office, another communication board. You actually need to start leveraging it for real-time communication and also for work productivity. Secondly is implementing a tool like that. And then if you haven't implemented a tool like Zoom or Skype or a video conferencing tool, do that. But then become very intentional about over-communication. Now, what do I mean is, remember, when you're at an office 40 to 50 to 60, 70 hours a week, especially if you're a startup, maybe 80 hours a week with your co-founding team, with your early employees, you take for granted the amount of non-intentional, spontaneous interaction that occurs. So stop by the desk questions, coffee banters, go out to lunch, go grab a Starbucks, go jump in an Uber together. All that stuff's taken for granted. That fills up sometimes up to 40, 50% of your day. It's just the spontaneous work and non-work related things. That's gone now. So you need to intentionally create unintentional connections. You need to intentionally create those spontaneous times. So that's, the funny GIF in Slack, you need to do it more. Hey, can I jump on a 5-minute and just check in with you video call? You need to do that more. If you're a leader, if you're the CEO, you need to model it. And you need to ask your other leaders to model it as well. So over communication does not exist yet in a situation like this. Over communication is actually really important. The other thing is, remember, your team is isolated now. So all the ambiance of people around them is gone. What they have, if they live alone, they're alone now. If they live with family members, maybe it's family they're not used to being together this long throughout the week together. They feel isolated. So you might be one of the only avenues they can talk about their isolation with or their feelings with. So remember that you're going to have to now replicate those things for them. So if they're used to a check-in only once a week, you may need to up that to every single day, just for at least the next few months, because you need to subside that isolation. Isolation leads to disengagement, right? And it leads to lack of productivity. So you want to engage them more. So those are kind of two top tips that I could give immediately that would really help you. And if you can model that as a leader, that would be great. Buda, how about you guys? Were there some intentional things that Justworks did in the beginning when you did the transition, besides these, the setup process? Are there things that they've done that you found have been working and helpful for you?
Yeah, we definitely send out recommended guidelines as far as what to do. once we start working remote. And by the way, like, that was great. The first tip about like internal communication, but the second tip about over communication, huge. I manage a sales team of 9 reps, and it makes a big difference when the reps are isolated and getting on a call with a prospect, because if that call goes south, they feel like they're in it alone when they're not. They're actually not. They're working for the same company. They're on the same team. They have colleagues. They have a manager. But because they're in their apartment by themselves, it feels like they're on that call alone and they don't have the support. So it's extra important to over communicate. So that's a great point. What we've done is daily check-ins with our teams, and it's up to the manager discretion. So some managers have it at 9:15 in the morning. Some managers have it at 5:30 after work, just to get a check-in on everybody's day. But daily check-ins for me with my team, office hours. Normally when I'm in the office, it's easy to just grab me and pull me to the side. Working remotely, it's hard to see what my schedule is like and where I am. So I create office hours on a daily basis. I should actually do it probably twice a day, but I have an hour blocked off where reps can just jump in and come talk to me about personal issues, work issues, whatever it is that they're going through in their mind. It's all free game, right? At this point, it's like, let's just get as much interaction back and forth as much as possible.
Hey, Michael, question. I love some of those thoughts in regards to kind of over checking in. Is that something that you suggest to kind of do on a proactive measure? Are you kind of talking to your team and asking them like, how are they doing? Does everyone need a different level, or are you kind of suggesting, hey, here's the best way to over communicate? Or is it some people need it 3 times a day and some people are actually okay because maybe they're not by themselves? They have a family and they want to do it every 3 days. How are you kind of thinking about that from an individual perspective? And again, for the rest of the group, guys, questions, insights, things that are working on your end are absolutely welcome. Just let me know when you're ready.
Yeah. So if that advice was particular to people who are not used to remote work, and so you might have 1 or 2 team members that maybe they did telework for you or they did remote work for you, so they're less of an issue because now they're nothing's really changed except the kids are home. So for them, really, you're checking in on, hey, is your childcare situation still good? Are you needing to flex some time because you need to support your spouse who's also remote working now? Well, what support can we give? What flexibility can we give? But especially for the employees who've never worked remotely or who've maybe even verbally said, I do not like to work remotely. I got this job to be an in-person job. You do want to do a check-in and pretty regularly, and you want to just set a level of expectation. People assume they're going to be fine, and a lot of people are going to say, I'm okay. And it's when you really ask them, or you yourself are vulnerable with them and say, hey, for example, last week I did an all-staff meeting, and I let them know the things I was going through first as CEO, the things I was thinking, the emotions I was feeling, and the challenges I was having, being stuck in a state where I used to call it home, but I'm not in my home. The challenges my kids were facing, so I let that vulnerability go, and that allowed my employees to feel like, okay, the CEO's dealing with the same thing, the leadership's doing the same thing. I can be vulnerable, and so people are going to say, I'm okay, and that's the first response most people are going to have, because they don't. If you haven't created a culture where they can feel safe to talk about those things yet, they're not going to yet. They're going to be hesitant to. So you might want to check. I recommend doing that check-in, but then it's going to be a little different as you go on. People are going to say, okay, hey, thanks for the check-in. I'm starting to feel better. I'm getting used to this remote work thing now. Why don't we check in once every other day? Why don't we check in twice a week? I'm starting getting that rhythm. We've gotten to a place where we're checking in about once a week as a company, just because we've done remote work so long. But that might not be the same for most of you who aren't used to this kind of environment.
Michael, let me just kind of chime in. So Kenny Olson, thank you. So his question, how should we think about video calls versus taking a sort of standard phone call? So video versus call. Yossi chimed into that, which I thought was interesting. Mandating video calls to give everyone a sense that we're all in this together and we're in the office. It also helps to see body language. Eric Meth also second the question answer. So Eric, well, let me first give, and Kenny and Yossi, again, I'm only here to facilitate. If you guys want to chime in or unmute, you're welcome to. Michael or Buda, I'll give you a chance to address video versus non, and then after that, Eric, if you want to chime in, let's try that.
Yeah, Buda, go ahead.
I personally think a balance of both. I lean towards video calls most of the time, especially when you're doing like check-ins and you're, it's something that's on the calendar and you've set aside time to talk about a topic. Yossi made a great point about body language. Most of our communication on a regular day is through body language, and so without it, it feels like a part of that is missing. So I much prefer the video chat when it's a scheduled call. But the occasional just like call to see how someone's doing, not necessarily talking about work, but just like a random call can also just like bump up culture in a sense. Whether it's like a TV show or like if you just saw like a great Netflix show and you like want to talk to somebody about it, just like a random call, it kind of gets them just like, it kind of just feels like you're bringing that office environment back. Like, hey, like you won't believe what I just saw or what just happened to me, right? Mm-hmm. And in those type of situations, just a call or a text or something will do. Doesn't have to be a video call. So, Eric, would love to hear what you mentioned you have something to add. So, feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think I'm really interested to see how overall behaviors change after we come through this on the other side. I've always also been a proponent of taking the piece of tape off or the camera cover that we all get at trade shows. I think we all remember what trade shows are. But yeah, it's important on a number of reasons. I think even more so now where people are, like you said, you're in a studio apartment by yourself. I'm in a house with 4 other human beings a lot more often than I expected. I also have worked remotely for quite a bit of my career. And I always have been a proponent of having that face-to-face contact. And I think it's even more important now as people are a little more isolated as we're trying to figure out ways to navigate this. It's body language, it's engagement. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that we're recognizing is bandwidth issues. So when it's permissible, maybe start the call with video, stay engaged. If you have to go off and go voice only, just to deal with some of the bandwidth issues with everyone using teleconferencing and web conferencing now. Those are some of the thoughts I had.
Thanks, Eric.
That's great. And Kenny or Yoshi, if you want to say anything, you feel free to unmute and say something if you want to say anything else. I was going to say that this is an opportunity for you to connect with employees that maybe you didn't feel like you had an opportunity to, or team members. This is even an opportunity to connect with team members or employees where maybe you don't have the greatest relationship. Maybe you started off a little rocky. People are welcoming connection right now. People are the most vulnerable right now. And so, and then I would include your family and friends you haven't talked to in a while, family maybe you haven't connected with. This is your excuse to call and say, I just want to check and see if you're okay. People are willing to let go of a lot of things right now because of this. And so I've called so many old friends I haven't talked to. And the other thing is, if you think about your psychology, a Facebook Messenger phone call is different than a phone call. A Slack phone call is different than a phone call. So people will find that novel right now. And so I'll do crazy, weird, I'm a little crazy. Well, I'll literally Facebook Messenger somebody I hadn't talked to in a while. And then I'll say, hey, can I call you on Facebook Messenger? They think it's so fun, right? If they haven't done that already, or can I call you on WhatsApp, whatever these tools, it's very different for them. Or can I video message you? So work these tools to your advantage right now, and take advantage of the opportunity to connect with people and model for them what it's like to reach out, to let stuff go, put stuff in the past, because that's going to help people, all of us, get through things. And if you're used to remote work already, be a model for your friends, your roommates, your family members that are going through this, that are struggling. be that person for them. And that's where leadership, your leadership, has a great opportunity right now.
Hey, Michael, thank you for that answer. Really interesting. I had a great question from Mariana, which I'll call out, which is, so now, pre this sort of this experience that we're going through, it was very clear that even though it's changed a lot over the years, when people go home, it's home, right? And people value and respect that line, and kids and family and all that. But even over the last couple of years, it's gotten more blurred that, more people are coming from home. But today, you see the question here, and for anyone that doesn't see it, how do you help teams to manage work versus personal life? For example, it's not easy to draw the line when one starts and the other ends. Thoughts to that?
Yeah. So one of the things is if it's not clear in your culture or clear at the leadership level, that's actually a discussion you want to have at the leadership level. A question. We made it really clear, and I made it really clear to our employees, the reason why we did remote work is I wanted flexibility to be with my family and to enjoy what I call work-life harmony or work-life satisfaction, not work-life balance. All right, everyone's balance is different. You're going to have employees that are willing to hustle and work 100-hour weeks for you. They don't care. They love work. Their personal time, their fun is work, right? So you might have a sales guy that just wants to work, and if anything, he wants to work harder now. Then you have other people there that are, I got family. I want to keep that time sacred. So being in agreement at the leadership level and with your team on respecting each other's time and having that conversation, actually having it, because the assumption was when you left, if you were from an office, you left the office, you're going home, that's personal time. That assumption's gone now, right? People don't know when you're logged off necessarily. People don't know when you're done with work. So having a signal for that could be in Slack or in your internal communication tool, like setting a status, I'm off work, or telling employees, hey, can you put your phone on do not disturb or something that would help us signal to each other that we're not working. So just being really clear with that and in establishing those time blocks. And, if you have employees in different time zones, this is going to be a challenge for you. If you have employees that have different roles or different shifts of time or work flexible schedules. So you want to just make it really clear in your team and across your company, that communication. Buda, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's super important to manage to each person. Every person thinks of like work-life harmony differently. For example, I have somebody who, prefers to work 45 minutes and take 15 minutes off. Work for 45 minutes and take 15 minutes off. I have somebody who prefers the no-fly zone, blocking off their calendar. I have somebody who, they will block off their entire day and just organize their entire day and go about it that way. But I think, it's having that conversation with every person, respecting what their decision is, and holding them accountable to it, of course, but respecting what their preference is, and putting together a game plan as to how to manage their day. If they have kids, managing around that, and maybe they need to leave. They need to like drop out a little bit early to go play with their kids. Whatever it is, homeschooling, if they need to set aside time for that. Just difference for each person, but having that discussion and setting those expectations from the beginning is going to be helpful.
Yeah, but I think it's Chris. Obviously, I think that's a great summary, and it kind of piggybacks on Eric's last comment in regards to schedules and boundaries or critical time blocks, no fly zone. So I don't have a team today like I used to, but I'm almost thinking that if I did, the spirit of kind of talking to everyone individually up front and sort of understanding what their life looks like. So whether it's like, yeah, we're homeschooling, we have 2 kids running around and we have to deal with this, but this is what works. Or, I have a roommate, or I have shitty broadband. But I think, and for those of you on the call, if you haven't done this yet, depending on the size of your team, I think that's kind of a really interesting and valuable opportunity, which is to talk to everyone individually about what they're not getting too personal, but what is it that they're, that like you said, Buda, what's working for them and what doesn't work for them. So you set those ground rules early.
Yeah. Kenny, you had your mute mic. Do you want to say something at all?
Yeah, just something that we've done is We have Google Calendar.
Sorry, Kenny, can you just maybe like where are you? Who do you work with? Just really high level, nothing crazy.
Yeah, so Kenny Olson, CEO of Dart Displays. We do retail technology and high skill labor in retail stores. So we've actually been work remote since the beginning. One thing that we do that helps is we all are on G Suite and everybody can see everybody else's calendar. And so blocking stuff during the day when you need to do something for yourself, like people see that and they're able to respect it and kind of schedule around it. You just got to be, willing to kind of share with everyone. But in the end, the transparency's worked well for us.
Awesome.
That's great. Yeah, that's great, Kenny.
Something that we have that's unique is because we service an essential class of trade, we still actually have to send a lot of people out in this environment and like do work in areas, even some of the ones that are on like shelter in place. And so the other thing that we've done that we found a lot of receptivity is nobody really knows what to do. So like do your homework with wherever you can get information from and share it, and then just use kitchen logic combined with what is kind of factual and out there about containing the virus and apply it to your work processes. We did that, for example, for a big project we're doing at Kroger and shared it with our employer, and they're now reapplying a lot of what we did because people are just trying to move fast and figure this out, and everybody actually wants to be safe, and we're all open to ideas. So
that's great.
Yeah, that's the other thing we had. Thanks. I'm going to meet again.
I shared with Chris and Buda that yesterday that I started wearing these like plastic kitchen gloves, right? And they're disposable. And I don't do it because these are like medical grade or anything. I do it just to put a reminder, stop touching my face, right? Because I touch my face literally all day, all the time. And so I just put these on. I'm at my own, computer only, my mouse. It's not like I'm touching much, but stop touching my face. That's the thing that I need a reminder, right? And so those little markers for you are going to be helpful. The other thing that I've recommended to our clients is if your employees don't have a cultural document in front of them, and when I say cultural document, I mean your company's mission and vision, your company's values, right? The culture document, the kind of one two pager that outlines the culture, the family, the rules of your business. Laminate that and send it to all your employees, right? Because they might not have anything related to your company at home. They see all the logos and the values and everything at the office. So if you want to get them to continue to remind them that they're part of this bigger team, send them something to put on their office wall, to put on their desk, to put in front of their laptop, so that reminds them who they're with, what team they're playing on. So we have a culture document. I'll send Chris the example so he can disperse it out. That we wrote. It's 2 pages, and it lists kind of our mission, vision, values, and also kind of what we call the family rules, the behaviors we expect from all people. That's a part of Reconciled. So that might be a helpful tip.
Yeah, we have a at Justworks. I think we're fortunate enough to have an HR team really focus on this on a daily basis. So we have a daily newsletter that goes out to all of our employees called The Scoop, and just advice, tips, new discoveries, anything like new to share to everybody on the team. That's super helpful. It's just like a constant reminder that like Justworks is here for you. Every day we're learning just as you are. That's a good point, Mike.
I love that. Guys, and Michael and Buda, I know you have like a few other topics and tracks to kind of go into. One that I just wanted to toss out there that I just thought about is how is everyone on the call thinking about that? Prior to this happening, there's goals to hit, right? There's objectives in the business, there's revenue to be made. And then there's this very sort of fine line of something that none of us have gone through before, which is kind of balancing, a very serious circumstance from a health perspective, social awareness, not even social distancing, just not being tone deaf, asking or pushing like you normally would. But at the same time, so I'm, kind of purposely contradicting myself. The show must go on. You need to make money. So I'm just curious for anyone, or Michael, Buda, if you want to kick off, or anyone else, how does the group think about sort of managing expectations around what the business still has to do, but still trying to be politically correct?
Yeah, I would say like since we made the transition, or since all this happened, that's really been one of our biggest struggles is getting kind of like the right motivation to still do what we do, which is talk to companies and sell them at the end of the day, right? But I think we've taken the approach as a team, and we've agreed on this. So we had this discussion, and we've agreed on this as a team to take the approach of reaching out as a resource first. So reaching out as a company that can provide support, resource, guidance, advice, anything that can help you. And then it's about delayed gratification. So like at some point, like when the dust settles, or if our resource or guide is good enough, then eventually that'll turn into production or value down the line. Michael, would love to hear how you guys do that.
Yeah, I agree with Buda. Reaching out first as a resource, especially to your current clients, but also maybe to prospects you've already been talking to, saying, hey, just want to check in on you, make sure you're doing okay, want to be a resource if in any way. Here's a free pro bono thing we can provide, or a service we can provide. Justworks has some amazing resources. They're keeping up to date on everything going on, including legislation that's being passed. The best advice I got yesterday, one of the best, was if you're talking to prospects or new prospects, reaching out and actually giving them advice or an idea on how they can serve their customers better. So, somebody reached out to me yesterday that's a customer of mine and said, hey, I had an idea for you. Could you do a webinar on just the SBA disaster loan and the SBA loan process? Because we're all scrambling and we don't know what to do and how to get through it. And I went, wow, that's a great idea. So reaching out to your customers and saying, hey, I have an idea for you, and reaching out to prospects, I have an idea for you. Based on your business, I think this could help your customers and other customers. Do you want to partner on that? Do you want us to work on that with you? I'd love to get your thoughts on what we could do better. How could we be a better resource to you and others like you? So just kind of using the time to brainstorm, because everyone has more extra time now, because you've cut out commute, you've cut out a lot of things. So if you're a commuter, you probably added back an hour to 2 hours a day for a lot of people. So they had a little extra time to talk in a brainstorm. And I think people are going to appreciate that.
Yeah, and everyone's looking for help. No one's already gone through this. Yeah, so everyone's looking for help these days. So reaching out as like with tips will always be appreciated, I feel like. Now we've actually had reps make the mistake of being like sending out a cold email or like being and not recognizing the situation. And what they've done actually is send a follow-up and just apologize that my first communication was a bit tone deaf. I want to really just like build value with you, and so here's something that can help you. If you're willing to chat down the line, just please keep us in mind. We actually got positive responses from an email like that. So putting the fact that like they were tone deaf, or putting the fact that like what we're going through is just tough in an email, in writing, and just admitting and owning up to that responsibility, people ended up appreciating that.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Before we go, maybe kind of another topics, obviously still related to managing remote teams. And guys, I know it's 12:42 East Coast. I probably should have blocked off till 1. We're gonna continue. I hope people can stay on, but as long as Michael and Buda are cool, we'll go at least another 10 minutes, given the introduction. We waited for people to get on. First, give an opportunity for anyone that's on the call to chime in, or if there's a topic that they want to discuss or any sort of insight in regards to managing remote teams. Kind of give the group that opportunity before we go into a next related topic.
Hey guys, it's Jesse here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hey Jesse.
Hey Jesse.
Hey, yeah, I'm actually not in the US right now. I'm in Finland. Oh yeah, and I'm one of the co-founders of Rens Coffee Shoe. We make shoes out of coffee waste and plastic waste. See, very simple. And yeah, I think that like you guys already said, I don't know, it of course depends on the company culture, but we feel like the productivity and the spirit of our company is somehow very high during these past 2 weeks that we have been working remotely. We have been constantly sharing memes about coronavirus, and we all joined TikTok thanks to my co-founder's son. We have like TikTok challenge. Okay, it depends on the company culture, because TikTok is also what we do for work, because we need to do marketing campaign on TikTok. But yeah, it's been really fun for us. Actually, like once a while, because the situation in Finland is not as like serious as in New York, so we don't have like a complete lockdown, but it's still pretty serious. But once a while, we still go to the office, and at least when I went to the office, like everybody, almost like or like over half of the company are there, because they just miss the office, even though like us, right, like the co-founders, like strongly suggest them to stay home. So I feel like the point about community and like the company is much more important now to every individual, because they feel like they have a place to belong to. On top of it, I think I told this to Chris and Matt, but I think you guys should all take pneumonia vaccine. I'm not a doctor, but like Angela Merkel, who is the German chancellor, she already took pneumonia vaccine. So I think you guys should check with your doctor and take it if you guys still can. I talked with some of my friends in New York, and they said that the situation is pretty bad, that they couldn't go to take the vaccinations. So if you guys are in the position that you take it, then you should take it. That's it.
Hey, Jesse, Chris, quick one thing that you mentioned at the start of the call that's been on my mind, because I've seen some posts of people using like Snapchat and filters and like, group of 30 people wearing wigs and things like that. Don't want to go too much off the topic and take away from Michael and Buda's remaining time and agenda, but any thoughts in regards to kind of the playful, fun potential aspect? And totally hear you. Every company's different. Every culture is different.
Yeah.
Any just sort of general thoughts in regards to the importance of play and maybe bringing some humor and light to a kind of a dark situation?
Yeah, so those are actually like the coffee banter. Like we usually don't share those on the general channel of Slack, because we meet each other every day and we joke around in the office. It's a really fun office. We have like all these games. Anyway, but like now we move it seamlessly to the general channel of Slack. So everybody just like, oh, this is like a new information. Nepal, we have one employee from Nepal, and Nepal has like 0 cases. And then there's all kind of meme because they have 0 tests. So they share like the office meme, all kind of those, like all those little things is part of the over communication and also the positive side. So the coffee banter is really important. So that's why we use a lot of humor in our communication too. And we, like my co-founder's son here and I, can see the productivity is even higher because they are chasing us for like signature, proposal, approval, and all that. So we are quite surprised. Like it was a pleasant surprise in the beginning. Of course, we like to go to the office, right? It's a nice office, but now like we feel like the productivity didn't skip it. So thanks to this.
Got it. Jesse, thank you for that. Michael, Buda, I'll let you guys kind of I know we're remaining time, but I'll let you guys kind of bring another relevant topic to the table.
Yeah, so I think one of the topics I want to bring up in regards to remote, the regards to the teams, is imagine what you're learning right now, and what are some of the things you feel like you would actually continue doing in the long term that you're learning from right now. Okay. So some of you and a lot of companies that never gone remote, you're getting a taste of it now. And some of the aspects of it are great. Some of the aspects are actually really, really productive for your business. So think and imagine, don't take this time as just temporary. Think about, okay, if we have to shelter like this for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, what can, and after we get out, what can we take from this that we can do permanently? that we can learn from and be a strength to the business. So that's one thing. And two is how can you see that your business actually come out of this stronger and more valuable instead of weaker? So a lot of people are, the focus of the disaster bill and the focus of the loans and everything and is to save businesses, to save the economy. Maybe you're in a position where you actually will grow. So think about what that could look like and what does that mean? If that means some pivots, if you're a startup, pivoting should be in your DNA, right? Pivoting should be something that if you haven't done it already, this could be your first time to pivot. So this might be an opportunity for you to just flex that entrepreneurial brain of yours and innovative brain and go, how do we come up stronger? And enlist those ideas from your team. Don't try to just figure that out on your own. So those are kind of two thoughts. Buda, I know Justworks, you guys have had aggressive growth for many years. You just raised a large amount of funding, so you're in a good position. But I'm assuming Justworks is still planning to try to continue to grow and to come out stronger. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, we're definitely still planning on growing, but it's interesting you brought up innovation. I was listening to a podcast called The Business of Fashion, and they were talking about how in 2008, it actually created a brand new, industry of like boutique designers in the e-commerce space. Boutique designers previously didn't dive into e-commerce; they were more brick and mortar. But in 2008, when the stock market crashed, it opened the door for e-commerce, for boutique people to go e-commerce. Justworks was actually founded in 2008. We were founded during,
Wow.
it was Hurricane Sandy. So it was during a time where resources were depleted, and people had more time in their hands, and they were thinking about what's the next phase and what's the next chapter in their life. So it's times like these create and generate more innovation. We have less distractions that pull us from our day-to-day. So I would encourage, and it comes from us as leaders, to encourage our people to think about where can you improve, or what do you want to improve, whether it's personally or professional development, whether it's learn a new language, a skill set. For me, it's talking in front of people, it's doing webinars, it's doing being a keynote speaker one day. So encouraging people and leading by example to take those steps, motivating them and kind of following up with them. What have you done, since last week, or what have you done since the last time we talked about this? It's a great time for people to set aside, the nonsense and really focus on where they want to develop or where they see themselves to be. If anyone has can chime in on follow up on that, we'd love to hear some thoughts. Eric, Jesse, Chris.
Yep. No, I know so it's 12:52. I think I know Yossi just had to hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Yossi. Thanks for joining. I just want to make sure I can kind of thank you guys and thank people for joining before they kind of have to drop, just given how we scheduled the time. Michael or Buda, any sort of last comments or insights or kind of final words that you want to share before I kind of wrap things up?
I can first, and then I'll let Michael. Do you mind?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So for me, it's personally learning and going to as many webinars and stuff like this as possible. Even if it's not directly related to what I do or what I'm looking for, just hearing more people talk, hearing about what's inspiring other people, thinking, doing things that are outside the box. I think it's going to, mold how I manage my team. So I encourage you guys all to just take more of these steps, these webinars that might be uncomfortable for you. Just do it. You never know who you'll meet.
Yeah, that's a good word, Buda. And leadership is going to be scarce right now, and it's needed. And so all of you, encourage you your leadership, the positions you're in, whether it's leadership with your family, with your extended friends, at work, with your company, having leadership and courage right now, it's going to be scarce. And so a lot of people are going through anxiety, on the brink of depression. They're having challenges at home. They're dealing with a new environment for work, kids at home, spouse at home all day. So this is your time to flex your leadership muscle and be an example, because there's going to be this gaping hole right now with so many people going through a change. So take this opportunity to do that, to learn, to make mistakes, to not be afraid to share content, share your content online, share it with the world, and let people know how you're working through this. And people are going to appreciate that from you.
Michael, that's Michael Buda. Great final words. And also just want to, Kenny, again, just great thought as well from him. Just echoing the theme of, this is from Kenny Olson, echoing the theme of focus on what customers need now. We are having a very good experience so far with offering new products that are relevant to the coronavirus new normal world. I hadn't really thought about that, Kenny, but I think that's a really smart way of summarizing that, what your customer needed and valued 3 weeks ago has potentially changed and evolved to today, and taking the opportunity and time to lean in with that and very important and valuable customer to understand how you can help them. So, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
and Eric, did you want to say anything? You unmuted. You had any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that you guys summed it up really well. I think, the focus on not being afraid to make mistakes. This is going to be a massive, every time there's an issue in normal circumstances, the big thing about crisis management, you do a correction of errors after, and you understand what can we do to prevent this from happening the next time. No one saw this coming within reason, but we're all adjusting, and it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to make those errors, but cataloging them and then reflecting on this when we come out the other side on what was important, what's important going forward, and how can we, basically better ourselves. And I love the idea of just staying connected to people while we're doing this, even if it's something that's not super relevant to what you do day to day. I love the point you made that you could take something away from it and just understand and have more empathy for what everyone is going through right now, and how can you apply that to your own business.
Perfect. Yeah. So I know a few people have to jump. I just want to make sure I take the opportunity to thank Michael and Buda for their thoughts and their time and getting some leadership around a very important topic right now, and also for those that are still on for carving out the time. I agree with Buda's general sentiment that if there is a time to get on these things, get on calls and webinars to kind of learn and share insight, it's now, because we're home. Yeah, my only last kind of comment is I think that Michael also touched on is, and Jesse, quite frankly, is, keeping things real and human, and trying to be as emotionally connected to people at this stage, whether that's dropping the phone call to the person that you haven't made and just checking in on people. I think a lot of you are probably already doing that. I'm certainly seeing it. Every morning I wake up and see my phone. So let's continue to do that for one another. So I hope all of you got, just a little something, or more than just a little, on this call. I think we're definitely, the Story Summit team is going to be doing more of these on different topics. We're thinking about sort of next one being around managing cash flow and runway. So kind of from a financial lens. My partner, Matt, who's on the call, will definitely be one of those co-hosts. So more on that. But for now, thank you, Michael and Buda, for your time. Thank you for everyone for leaning in. We'll stop recording and kind of thinking about how we can package, edit, but also kind of pull some of the insights that we all heard, so we can ideally circulate. So more on that. So thanks again.